Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. I am just going to wait for this to get going. Hi. Hello, hello. Let's see, I'm waiting for Teresa. Hello. Thank you. Hi. Okay, there's Teresa. Go live with Teresa Pop. Okay, let's see.
Hi.
Hi. We did it.
We did it. We're so fancy. I have my pajamas on underneath here.
Are you wearing a raincoat?
And then I just put a raincoat over the top of my pajamas because I'm braless. And I was like, I'm not sure that's going to look great. So I just did like a little raincoat over the top.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I love
Hi.
it. Eric's gonna bust in. He's like helping me out there with the kiddos, and he will be in just a few minutes. So
No worries. I've had Mark write because my printer wasn't working, so Mark is like furiously writing out my questions for me that I have for you guys. I was like, "Can you bring them in for me,
guys? This is what happens. You know, you're scheduled to do a live, and that's just what happens. You have kids,
Mum
right?
life, mum life.
No.
You look great.
Thanks, Mama.
Wow, we have 916 people already.
Wow. Hi, everyone. Good morning from San Diego, from Russia. I'm just going to say hi to everyone while we're waiting for a second.
I know. Hello from Israel and Oz. Aussie.
Aussie. Serbia. Hi, Serbia.
Minnesota. That's where my husband's from. Bonjour from France.
I realize that, you can't see below here, right? You can't see below.
No. That's why I was okay to have my pajama pants on. Even though now I've shown anyone, like everyone already knows that I'm wearing pajamas. So that's okay. Hi from Austin. Thanks for joining. You guys are about to hear the coolest birth story ever.
I don't know if that's
Hope you're prepared.
It's a birth story.
It's quite the birth story. People are giving us nice compliments. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness.
Nice. My hair's really feral right now, so I just sort of chucked it back, and then if you put a headband on, you can't actually see the grays. That's a little hack for you. A mum
Hi
hack.
from Rome. Wow. I'm hearing like myself after I speak.
Probably because again I don't have headphones. Oh, you're not wearing headphones, are you?
No, can you hear yourself?
No. I turned you down.
It went away.
I turned you down. I had you like full blast.
Okay.
So I've turned you down. Use the hello from India. Okay, so
we can get started, and Eric will
should we just start, and then Eric can come on in?
Yes.
So guys, welcome to our very first episode of In Conversation with Sarah, Wright, Olsen, and myself. We're going to be doing these a lot over the next sort of month. That we have our book, Zen Mamas Finding Your Rhythm Through Pregnancy, Birth, and Beyond, coming out April 6th. And here is Eric, the man of the hour. So we have our book coming out April 6th. And to promote our book and to tell everyone about it, we are jumping on and doing these amazing things called In Conversation, where basically we will take a subject from the book and we will break it down and we'll share our own stories and tidbits, and you guys can ask questions, and it's just going to be sort of an organic, free speech about what's going on in our book and all the things we cover. And the book is not just for people who are pregnant or who have had babies. It's also for people who are considering having babies in the future. And we sort of cover everything from thinking about getting pregnant to the fertility journey, which can be challenging for many people. And then through pregnancy, we talk about birth. And then also the postpartum period. So we try and cover the entire gamut in our book. And so today, our first subject is going to be about birth. And I have not actually heard the full birth story yet. I've heard little tidbits. I've heard bits and pieces, but I haven't heard the entire story. So I'm really excited. Thank you, Mark Webber, for bringing me my questions.
Thanks, Hubby.
Mark Webber, let's get him on.
I've got my questions here, guys.
Oh my God.
It also works as a really nice bounce.
It's wonderful. Perfect.
Oh,
there
wow.
you go.
A white piece of paper. All right, guys. So we're talking about winter today. I thought that maybe we could start by both of you just explaining who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about, and who's in your family.
Great.
I'm posting about this right now. So
Yeah.
I love it.
Mama. Is that what I should be doing?
Yes, it's on yours and Mama. So I'm Sarah Wright Olsen. I am a mama of 3, with also 2 fur babies, and Akita.
So much going on.
I know. And then someone just called in, and I was like, "Oh, how do you disable that?"
I thought it froze for a second. I was like, what?
That's what it was. And I'm an actor, and also I am one of the co-founders of Bayo, an organic plant-based skincare line for the whole family. Your turn.
My turn. I just posted. Posting to Eric C. Olsen. What's my name? Eric? Everything that you just said. Actor, producer, most importantly, I think
Makeup
dad.
producer. doing very well. I'm going to have a little boast for you.
Very kind. A storyteller, I think. I think that, we have an opportunity to tell the stories that helped shape my youth through literature. We're trying to do now through television and film. And I have 2 furry children as well. 3 human children.
And didn't you get a puppy when Sarah was about to give birth? Like a few weeks before? This is the perfect time to get a puppy.
I was 8 months pregnant, and Aspen came into our lives.
Fair enough.
She was a very sweet, furry little lady. But I was like, okay, you can have your baby, and then I'll have mine.
Yeah, I was actually looking for a buddy who needed like an Akita for security, and then this dog was returned because they were like, it chewed up the floorboards and all these problems with the puppy.
It's a puppy.
We're like, that's what puppy does.
Well, puppies too.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, we have to get, this should be our dog. And so I went to below Salt Lake, and what's the name?
My stepdad.
Your stepdad drove all the way from Arizona to the bottom of Salt Lake and picked up that furry puppy.
That's right.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, so let's talk about they're my dogs going nuts next door. So Winter is your 3rd little girl.
Yeah.
Oh, the second girl, 3rd baby.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear, just start from the beginning, talk about your conception journey with her, because it was quite a unique experience that you had surrounding her conception. And I just think it's a really beautiful story. So if you could share that would be amazing.
Absolutely. So when Teresa and I were writing the book, we were working on the editing phase, and we had written an entire chapter surrounding pregnancy loss. We definitely felt like that was very important, and we put that all in Teresa's voice because she had experienced pregnancy loss at the time. And I did a little disclaimer at the beginning that was like, oh, if you're good, if you're like something about being a friend and being supportive of somebody who's going through pregnancy loss. And then Teresa wrote that chapter, and while we were editing it, I ended up experiencing pregnancy loss. And so it was an amazing thing for me to be able to read and communicate and hear stories from Teresa and read stories from those pages. It actually meant the world to me. And Eric and I, took some time, and I had some major self-care time to take care of myself. And then it was kind of crazy and surprising, but a month and a half later, on Christmas Day, we found out we were pregnant with Winter, which was amazing.
Oh,
I
what a little
know.
blessing.
What about you? Were you really surprised, Josh?
At what part?
All of it. I mean,
All of the above.
all of the above. Pregnancy loss experience for dad, I think, is a unique topic because I think for mom, we can feel the things that are going on in our body, but we don't always recognize how hard it is on the dad too, who's also very touched with what is happening.
Yeah. Those are all good questions. Let's unpack this. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and I think it's one of those experiences that's so theoretical until you go through it, and then watching you navigate it, the emotional aspects of it, the logistical aspects of it. I mean, the actual what is a procedure.
Yeah, it's called a DNC. That's what I chose to do.
And how detailed do we go into this?
I mean, you can go as detailed as you want.
I just remember, I remember every aspect of it. Being in the room for the scan, being presented with choices in that moment where you're not in a mindset to make any kind of decision, let alone those types of decisions. And knowing that, some part of our brains knowing that we shouldn't be making this decision now, and taking the weekend, right?
Yeah, we took the weekend, and Eric encouraged me to go out into the water to do a paddleboard on the ocean. And I didn't really want to, but I was like, okay, it's maybe a good idea. And I did, and I paddleboarded out, and I just kind of laid my head on the paddleboard and took a couple of deep breaths and watched the fish swimming under the board, and I just released it all. I just started sobbing, and I think he kind of knew that's what would happen once I got out there.
Well, the philosophy for that was just to escape the theater of our lives, right? So much, and this is everyone, it's not just actors, it's so much of your life is performed surrounded by other people, and so much of our instincts are about preserving other people's perspectives. And there's something beautiful about going into the ocean by yourself, or a swim or a hike or any of these things. You're just allowing yourself to exist in whatever that is.
You're just
that's a really intimate moment as well, which you probably hadn't had the space to do that.
No, and it's a space I don't think that on any kind of catastrophic events that we take the time to do. And I'm saying this, and I'll get to this point, that I certainly hadn't taken and didn't think that I needed to take. So went back and did the DNC, and I remember being outside the room, I wouldn't leave the door, and just hearing it. And I remember the nurse opened the door, and those images, the logistics of it are really tough on the body itself.
Yeah,
our dogs are fighting.
I think Sarah, I'm sure you noticed this too, Eric. The way in which you honored your experience and the way that you were so dedicated to healing yourself physically, as well as, of course, emotionally and mentally, I thought it was quite profound. You were really focused on treating yourself almost like you're in a postpartum period. Could you just dive into that for a second? Because I think some of those practices are so beautiful, and it seemed incredibly healing for you.
Yeah, so I don't know that I would have sort of taken that time for myself had I not lost my dad a few years earlier. I think going through such an intense, overwhelming stage of grief in my life and going through different stages of grief already, sort of prepared me in a way to go through this different kind of grief. And I felt it, I knew it, when it happened. It was like the first moment was, my first thought was, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is true. And I was shocked, even though I knew the statistics. I mean, we had been writing this book, I knew what the statistics were. And yet I was like, no, this isn't happening. I mean, when she put the wand to my stomach and pulled it away right away and was like, oh, I'm just going to grab the doctor. And I was like, looked at Eric and was like, oh no. Like, I just couldn't believe it, But from that first moment of shock through just like the pain of knowing that this wasn't happening to, well, I didn't want to just rush into, okay, how do I get pregnant again? I think that's the instinct, and your body definitely feels like, okay, your mind, you're like, how do I get pregnant again? How quickly? Like, I just want to do this to like cover it all up. I want that pain to go away. I want the excitement again, right? And I felt all of those things, but I was like, you know what? I am going to take a couple weeks here, and I'm going to really focus in on my body. And by the way, I was able to do that because I wasn't working at the time. So I was able to take that time for myself. And what that meant for me was eating nourishing foods. Like, I was in postpartum time. I took things really slow around the house. I didn't go out much or do many things. And I took baths and things just to keep me warm. Like, when they talk about in postpartum doing things that are very warming for the body. So I remember like purposely putting socks on all the time and like putting like warming sweaters and things and just kind of bundling up and allowing myself the time to heal and to kind of sit in it. And then I started to feel that pulling away and feeling back to normal afterwards. And I felt more nourished. And then I was allowed to kind of, in my head, okay, I can move on to this like next stage. But I think instead of like racing through it, which a friend of mine did write me and say, I wish I hadn't raced to try to get pregnant again. I really did not, I never dealt with the grief. And I loved hearing that because I was like, okay, I'm really going to try to sit in this for a minute and allow myself to process it. So it's not something that comes up later for me.
I think,
no, yeah,
I think that's also true from the partner's perspective as well. Yeah. And I know that my instinct on any type of thing is just to bootstrap it and power through and move on to the next thing. Like, I'm a fixer. I'm such a fixer.
So
am
I.
Something goes wrong and I need like 17 steps that I can, and I remember like one of my good friends, Pete, afterwards, and he knew, and we were talking about it, and I was doing what I do, right? Which is like this. And he just took a breath and he goes, I just want to make sure you're taking time to honor the grief. Gadoosh. Like, immediately started crying. And I think that's necessary. You have to take a beat to honor that grief. And I think that sometimes partners don't do that. Especially Sarah is so incredibly strong and independent, and watching her navigate her dad in this, like, she's really good at I think being super present in her grief.
So then how was the experience of then finding out that you're pregnant again and so soon after the loss?
That's a really
I can imagine. I just can imagine, like, just your brain, like, having to process saying goodbye to you break up with the dream of who this little baby would be or would have been, and you think about what they would have looked like, and then you're still navigating that, and then all of a sudden you guys have a positive pregnancy test, and so you're just switching gears into this whole other journey. Was that riddled with anxiety? Because I think for me, I would immediately be thinking, oh my God, this is going to happen to me again. Like, how did you process those feelings?
Yeah, you know, I think that from
Did you want camera girl?
no, I am. I'm coming back into camera.
Okay.
I think from writing the book, I definitely knew, you know, those statistics that, and I really am a cup. What is it? A cup half full instead of a cup half empty. Like,
Yes.
I'm very positive,
Yes, you are.
right? So, for me, I was like, okay, like, I know statistically that you really are more likely to have a healthy pregnancy after having a loss. And so I was excited about that. But of course you're feeling anxiety immediately. And by the way, I took a pregnancy test on Christmas Eve, and I was like, could barely see the second line. And Eric did not know yet. And I was like videoing it for Teresa and sending it to her and being like, I want to give this to
I was
Eric.
like, that's a line.
But I don't know. Am I pregnant?
I was like, it's a line. A line's a line. Oh my God, you're pregnant. Yeah.
And by the way, we say that in the book too. We're like, if you see 2 lines, you're pregnant, even if it's really faint.
It doesn't matter how
I
faint
don't
it is.
believe us.
I know. I have had in the past, and I
remember him.
know. I'm like, I'm pregnant. Oh my God, a line's a line. I remember you sent that to me, and I was like, that's it. You're pregnant. You're pregnant.
How was that for you?
I mean,
yeah.
Overjoyed. Oops, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I think you're overjoyed, and I think there's something about once you experience loss, you really do appreciate that moment in a different way. And of course, anxiety is a part of that. And I didn't recognize my anxiety about it until I had to work someday that you had a scan.
Yes.
And I remember being like, the most bizarre emotion of like a little bit of like, normally I'd be like, I can't make this exam, and I would, you know, there'd be great sadness in that. And there was some part of me that was just like, oh, that's okay that you won't be there. And I was like, oh, is that because there's some sort of self-preservation happening here? Like, that's driven by fear.
Yeah.
Is that I don't, you know, that there's part of me that's just like, you're trying to preserve a piece of yourself that has been broken from the last time around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just acknowledging that is a way for especially for me, like, all right, that's a choice based on fear instead of hope, and now I need to make a pivot. But I definitely found myself, you know, with that element of self-preservation.
All of those weeks leading up, though, to 13 weeks for me were a lot of internal talking myself through it.
Yeah.
It's okay either way. Like, you know, you've got
been through this before. It's okay.
It's okay if this happens. We can try again. Like, it was just a lot of, you know, constantly talking myself through it, because I was really excited and also a little protective of my heart and nervous and all those things. By the way, it's just normal. I think that is normal to feel like that. That is okay.
That is the mortal coil.
So then you guys had pregnancy throughout a pandemic.
And then the pandemic happened.
Wow. That's quite a colorful experience.
Oh my gosh. It was crazy. I mean, obviously, but I just remember, like, you know, he wasn't able to go with me to one of those very first scans, and then the pandemic happened, the shutdown happened, and that's it. He couldn't come with me at all. No one could come with me, right?
Really? Okay. So you had to go on your own to the scans.
Always. I had to go on my own. You know, you have to wear a mask. I had to have my temperature checked. I was wearing gloves. I was like,
tell them about the elevator.
I was afraid to ride in the elevator.
Well, this is during the height of the pandemic, where they were like, the virus is gonna exist in the air for 15 minutes in a space. And so we're like, well, if you go into an elevator, people were just coughing with their COVID.
And by the way, I was definitely someone who believed that COVID was going to crawl under the door and come and get me. You know? Yeah. I wanted to have my mask on, no matter.
And your visor. I love your double whammy. You have the mask, the visor.
There was a time when I did wear goggles. I will not lie to you about that.
It was such a hot outfit. Like, she was just...
There were kids swimming goggles. It was very...
Wow.
They
and like a full hazmat suit. How did you even do the scans? I mean, that's so... Did you have less scans because of it?
You know, there was
you had 2 less visits.
Yeah, I had a couple less visits where I just was like, is anything actually happening this day? Or are you just checking my blood pressure? And then, you know, my doctor was so great, and he was like, just buy a blood pressure machine on Amazon. And he was like, tell me what the readings are.
Which was also
which is just funny, because then I ended up like taking my blood pressure all the time.
And if you stand up or sit down, it fluctuates wildly.
I'm like, is this normal?
Just sit down and relax and do it again.
And so
you're not 160 over 140.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was, I don't know. I think because of the pandemic, I did have a little bit more anxiety than I probably would have during the, I mean, it's my 3rd pregnancy, so I probably could have like coasted through it a little bit. I was super nauseous in my 1st trimester.
You're always nauseous in your 1st
Always
trimester.
nauseous in my 1st trimester. Felt pretty good in my 2nd, but the anxiety was there, and I wasn't sure exactly, you know, none of us knew, or maybe even still know, how it affects pregnant women. So I was feeling there was a lot of articles being written at that time, and I was reading them and listening to podcasts, and I was just like nervous, you know, and nobody really had any solid answers. So
yeah.
So I really had to do that thing again, where you just go in and you go, okay, like, this is it. Like, we just gotta go through this and stay positive as best we can.
And then sort of towards the end of your pregnancy, you guys went back to Idaho, and you were living in an Airstream, writing some of the book with a new puppy.
Sounds insane when you say it out loud.
Please talk about this part.
Talk about what?
Living in Idaho.
So that was a road trip, right?
Yeah.
Did you do that in one?
No, we did that in 2 days.
Oh, because we had the Airstream.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we bought a little 16-foot Airstream as an office / doesn't matter. We took it to Idaho. And at some point we had rented out our house because I was supposed to go back to work. And so we went out to the barn, and Sarah, at 8 months pregnant, was sleeping in the Airstream at the barn with an outdoor shower, a brand new puppy.
And she was like typing the book on a little laptop with not great reception.
Yo, one of my favorite memories about hustle and passion is the 2 of you sending back and forth pictures to each other. Teresa in a rented RV. Everyone else is passed out, and she's up there like typing in this nook. It's all brown motif. Like, I don't know what. I don't know. So
ugly.
Like the worst motif, like 80s, like linoleum style. And Teresa is just like hustle passion writing this book.
Yes.
And Sarah on this rewrite too is the same thing. She's like cramped into an Airstream, super pregnant, like puppy chewing on her foot and just cranking. It's such a beautiful image of the
It was very calming though. Like, I remember hanging up my dresses to dry them on the line outside of the barn, and it was just very calming to me.
It was van life, like proper van life.
Yeah, it was beautiful. We felt so lucky that we got to go and do that. And then we came back to LA, you know, just about in time. At least we thought we were just about in time. It was, you know, maybe like 5 weeks before the baby was due. And I was like, this baby's going to come early.
Yeah, I remember. We're like, she's about to come. She'll be like 3 weeks early.
She was like,
she was chilling.
Days past her due date. I mean, something crazy where I was like, no.
How did you, because I remember I was only 5 days past with Forrest, but I could not handle the messages and the calls and the texts. Like, has the baby come yet? When are you having this baby? That baby doesn't want to come out. I mean, being 11 days past what your guest date is or your due date, did you have any of those annoying phone calls and were you like, I need to ignore my phone? Or were you fine? You were like, it's fine. Baby just wants to hang out in there a little longer.
You know, I have such your thing is on. I have such a large amount of, how do you say it? Prodromal? Is that the word? Prodromal?
Yeah. Labor. Yeah.
So I felt like I was in labor for weeks. And I think that's just something that happens to me because it's pretty much happened every time. I think the babies all get into a very similar position in my uterus. And then it like their head hits the cervix in a certain way. And I have all this labor leading up to the day that kind of, you know, makes me think, oh, this is happening today so many times. So, you know, I think I wrote my friends many times and was like, probably not happening.
I think it's it. I got a few of those messages.
And I did it. And then I would kind of crack up about it in the morning. And, you know, I think the only moment that was like a little nerve-wracking to me was just when I was talking to my doctor, who I love. But he was like, you know, when we get close to 42 weeks, we're probably gonna like try a couple of things. And I was like, what?
Yeah, no.
I was like, oh, that was the only moment where I was like, okay, we got to make this happen before then. And Eric was actually going back to work for the first time in the pandemic. So during the pandemic. So he was supposed to go back to work, and then they pushed it a couple weeks to help, you know, so that in case we would go into labor, and then we didn't. So the day that I actually woke up and was in labor was the very first day he was going back to work.
Oh my gosh, that'd be right. Oh no, so did Eric just go off to work knowing like, well, I guess I'm gonna be coming home early at some point?
I text them and I said, Scott Gamble, who's our showrunner, was so amazing because he's got 2 kids, and he was like, I don't want you to miss this experience. So he rewrote the whole first episode so that I was super light. And then the next episode, that's the day I showed up, and I was like, yo, my wife's going to have a baby today. So whatever we got to do to shoot me out as fast as possible, let's rock and roll. And in all fairness, they did. They were like, it was wonders. It was just, the whole thing was like, and everybody there is such a family member at this point. Yeah. They did everything they could to hustle. And then she was like, I'm heading to the hospital. And I was like, oh. And I was like, guys, she's heading to the hospital. So what? So they're moving on to the next scene, and they're just, you know, it's a free-for-all to try to shoot me out.
The difference between Eric and I as actors is that when Eric is under pressure, he's like
on.
When I'm under pressure, I'd be like,
same.
Do I?
Lines go out my head.
I'm sorry. Did I just have a British accent?
I need to redo that.
Yeah, like
everything
would go out the window. So that morning we woke up and I had like not a great night of sleep at all. And I woke up and it was like 6 a.m. or something, and I was really feeling some rushes that morning. And I got in bed with Eric, and I was so cold. That's what it was. I was freezing. It was so cold. And
wait, where were you that you weren't in bed with me?
I was in the bathroom, like going like, oh, should I get in the shower or something? Like I was freezing. And so I got in bed with him, and he like wrapped me up, and I started having rushes, and he was like, oh my gosh, are you having a baby today? And I was like,
at this point she thought that she was having a baby every day.
Every day.
That's so true. So
oh my God.
And our producers are writing me every day, like, does she have a baby? Does she have a baby? I'm like, nope, no baby. And I'm like quickly Googling, like, how do I get this baby out? And like,
oh my God. And I'm sure you did all the things as well to try and get it to come out.
Yeah, he's like, do you want to try this? And I was like, I'm good.
I know. I love that they try and say at the end, like, have sex with your partner as much as possible when you're 40 weeks. I'm like, get away from me. Like, you're not going anywhere near me. No. That's definitely not one of the ones I try.
I can't see anything, you know? Like, it's just like, so it's just the belly so out there. But anyway, so that morning, I told him, like, I really do think this is happening. I've been timing these this morning, and I think I was like kind of in and out of sleep last night, kind of timing them, and they were sort of 10 minutes apart at that point. But then this morning, like, they really started to feel like they were getting closer together. And so he was like, what should I do? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, should I go to work? And I was like, yeah, go to work, because work is actually closer to the hospital than we are at our house. And
Okay, yeah.
So let's say, like, you know, this is really happening, I'll call you. You could meet me there and be there either before me or right after me, right? And so, and by the way, we're still in the pandemic here. So I have a friend who's like lives down the street, Anna, who I do bail with, who she was sort of like on call to come over and watch my kids for me. And our amazing
social distanced.
So yeah, she was like showing up with the mask on. And our doula nanny, wonderful Sonia, they just like 2 days before were starting to allow doulas to come into the hospital.
Oh, thank God.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, if that's possible, I would love to have her there, and then she can drive me. So so that was like the plan. That was the plan. So we keep going.
And then keep going. I want to hear it all.
For popcorn? What happened?
I stopped for popcorn. No, I just want to make sure that we didn't need to stop there. Okay.
No, keep going.
So, next piece is that I was writing Anna and telling her, like, okay, I think this is happening. I'm probably going to go to the hospital somewhere around like 10 a.m. if these keep being consistent. At this point, you know, it was still like an hour and a half until 10. And Wyatt was starting his like first week of school. So he was like, you know, doing his Zoom school. So he's like in school in the living room. We just so happened to decide that, like, I don't know if it was our neighbor or what, was putting something up in the street. So they were jackhammering in the street. And by the way, my other two births were very calm in the middle of the night. Like, everything was chill and beautiful. And I like watched the moonlight when I was in labor. This was like wake up and it's kids in school and husband's off to work and dudes outside jackhammering, and like the noises are so loud, and I'm very sound sensitive just in general. And so that was driving me a little bananas. And then I kept having to like laugh through it. And so I told my friend, I was like, I'm probably going to leave around this time. And about 10 minutes later, she was sitting on my porch and she texted and she's like, I'm here. I'm on your porch, but don't worry. I'm not going to come in. And I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, come on in. It's fine. And so, you know, we were like getting my daughter and son set up with her, and then we're like, okay, like, should we go? Should we not go?
And at this point, how intense were the contractions?
So, you know, they were coming and feeling very intense, and I think it's because of the positioning of the baby. They felt intense. They were getting closer together, but I was still able to like move and breathe through them. So I was just like trying to go off of past births and be like,
yeah,
really time to go. But then also it was, you know, it was like daytime instead of the middle of the night. So I knew I was going to be dealing with traffic. I knew Eric was like at work. I wasn't really sure, you know, if this would be a quicker situation because of it being my third baby. So
traditionally it is.
And well, yeah. The third babies are a big surprise. Like, you never.
They are. They can
longer and shorter. So at this point, I was just like, okay, I guess we'll head over to the hospital. And then we get in the car, and I think this is always something that happens with me, but my brain to body to uterus, like the whole connection like lights up when I go, oh, it's go time. And then it like switches gears and the rushes get so much more intense.
So how do you have the like seat going back? Are you like, what's your positioning in the car? Like, how do you navigate contractions in a small vehicle?
Yeah, I can't sit down, right?
So, you can't sit down?
No.
Are you like holding on?
No,
to
so
like the
I
handlebars?
We have captain's chairs in our
great.
Volvo, and so I ended up going between the captain's chairs on hands and knees.
Yeah.
and holding like one of the chairs like this. And I took a little video of myself, which I think I put up already.
Yeah, you did.
Of me going like, hey. And by the way, that's why I was whispering, because I'm very sound sensitive. So I was like whispering like, hi, I think I'm in labor. I'm heading to the hospital. You know?
I wondered why you were whispering. I was like, why is she being so quiet?
Can't handle loud noise.
Yeah, I can't.
I love that, like, you're so quiet. We'll get to this. You're so quiet in the lead up, but then the actual, like, pushing part.
So loud.
But still, her loudness is okay. But no one else can be loud.
No one.
Yeah.
Or hot. You can't be hot to
Can't
the
be
touch.
hot. No. You get really hot when you're birthing.
I do. I don't.
You get sweaty.
No. I'd love to hear the science behind why, but I do get very, very hot and I sweat a lot. So we drive.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, so we're driving to the hospital and we're letting Eric know. I'm like texting him on the way. I'm texting my like team of everybody who's like sort of in our circle to be like, okay, Anna has the kids. If she needs help, there we go. Sonny and I are heading to the hospital. And we get to the hospital and it's so confusing around Cedars. So we missed the turn off. And so we have to go around again. It's so much traffic. And I'm like, oh my God, can we get inside? And then we end up getting into the parking garage, and the parking garage is totally full, and we can't find a parking space, and so we have to park so far away from where we're walking in. And so you just have to imagine that, like, you know, you're like in labor, you're walking through the parking garage, and I get up there, and I remember like, oh right, it's COVID. Like I have my mask on and my gloves and whatever, and my goggles. And the ladies look at me like I'm absolutely out of my brain. And they do a temperature check, and I don't know what the process is here, but we're in the parking garage, and they temperature check me and Sonia, and then I'm like, where's my COVID test? Like, are they gonna COVID test me before I go into the hospital, or was that something that happens later? And she's like, no, just go on up there to labor and delivery, and then they'll do it there. And so I was like, okay. And at this point, it's coming on the rushes are strong. They're 3 minutes apart. Like,
wow. And are they a minute long yet?
Yeah. Oh, fully a minute long.
Yeah.
At this point. And so we get up to the floor, and Goldberg, my doctor, he's already there. And so he's like, oh, get her in a room right away, because this is her third baby. And so they get me in a room.
Did you get your COVID test?
Not yet. And so they get me in the room, and the woman comes in, and she's like, I have to do your COVID test. And I was like, in the middle of a big contraction. She's like, I'll wait till you're in between. And there's so many different ways that they do COVID tests, by the way. You know, there's like spit tests and back of the throat, whatever. At the hospital, it was straight up the nose, back into your brain, which is horrible. I told Eric, I was like, oh, it was just awful.
Mid-contraction, like, have something shoved up there. Awful. That sucks.
And I was feeling nervous about the whole COVID situation beforehand, but then once it was go time, that all went out of my head.
I'm like, sure.
I have this baby, and y'all just stay out of my way.
Yeah.
I'm having this baby, y'all just get out of the way.
It definitely was a more, I've read some beautiful birth stories recently about people who have had home births during the pandemic. This definitely was a much more medical birth looking. Like, it just felt more hospital-y. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know how to say it. Esme's birth was a beautiful hospital birth. It felt calming, and the lights were low. This was like, everyone's got masks on, tests are happening. I feel like there's just like wires everywhere. It was a much different experience, but still great. It was just kind of go time when we got there.
Yeah.
So there was no slowness to the process, if that makes sense.
So Dr. Goldberg is he's like a pro-natural doctor.
Yeah.
Like, he really supports your choice to have a natural birth. Did you have specific birth preferences? I know you get there and it's go time, but had you talked to him in advance about, I want dim lighting and I want hushed voices and skin on skin afterwards, and don't, clamp the cord? Had you spoken about any of that stuff?
No. It's funny like, I just assume that he just knows my birth preferences, which is hilarious because he has so many patients, right? But you know, what's kind of nice is if you have a doctor that you're close with and they are sort of like he's known as a doctor who is, you know, so pro natural birth and like just really letting the mom lead the way. So the nurses at the hospital kind of know, oh, it's Goldberg's patient. You know, there's a few doctors definitely where they're like, oh, it's Goldberg's patient. Okay, well, she's, you know, and then I'm sure things are written down. But I didn't say anything. So at some point, someone dimmed the lights a little bit, and I was like, and then there was like music, and that was great. But that's not where my head was when I got there. It was just, he walked in, he checked me. I was like just about 6 centimeters when I got there. And he said, you know what, does the shower sound good? Like, maybe get in the shower. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it sounds better just to push the baby out, but sure, I'll get in the shower.
And where's Eric at this point? Are you speeding in traffic? Like, how are you feeling at this point?
We had 4 scenes to do, and they shot all 4 scenes. And just, that's great communication between Sonia and Sarah, and I flew over there, and I was there for this part. I got there just as you wanted to jump in the shower, yeah?
Yeah, so they checked me. They needed to. I was group B strep positive, so they had to give me the antibiotic first. And so I did that. That takes about 12 minutes, which I'm giving you that specific because for anyone who's curious about group B strep, like, it does take 12 solid minutes. So you think that's going to be a really long time. It goes super fast. It was not a big deal. They put the like head block on me. The only thing is that they put the needle here, and I have no idea why, but it's not.
I've had that before.
I've had it here before on like the top of my arm, on the other side, but on the side of your arm, if they ever try to do that to you, I would just try to suggest them to do it in a different spot, because that was awful. It was awful.
It's really tender there. Yeah, I've had it before.
Yeah. So I had the antibiotic, and then I started to get in the shower, and boom, this guy rolled in, which was awesome. I was like, whew, okay, he's here. I can breathe. Like,
he can hold you in a position for an hour in a squatting position, like he did the first time.
Way longer. Boy, do I lean on him. Like,
I can do a good squat for about 3.5 hours.
Yeah, that's true.
Ask him to do so much during birth. That is for sure. Like,
I love that. You're so physical with each other in birth. I feel like I'm the opposite with Mark. I'm like, go away. I'm laboring on my own. And I was like, okay. It's like over in a corner. I'm like, oh. But you guys really work in tandem. I love it.
Well, but hers is like, it's like, come here, I can, you know, hold on, yeah, hold on to me, and then hold on. She's like, you're so hot. And so I'm like, I take my shirt off, like, and she like grabs onto me, but then she's like, oh, your skin is, why are you so hot? Pushing me away. I can't stop laughing because she's just like, everything's too loud, and she's a.
Yeah, I mean, his body runs hot, so it was very warm to the touch. And I'm a little bit abusive in labor, where I'm just like, okay, like, I'm, you know, I put this rebozo around. Rebozo is like it's kind of like a scarf, but they use it, doulas use it to help, you know, with different positions and to help alleviate pain. And so it's just like a big piece of fabric, but I put the rebozo around his neck, and I was like holding onto the rebozo and doing this like weird, like super spread apart leg squat thing, which is just
around his neck. I love it. That's genius. He's just trying to like brace.
I was like pulling, and he was just trying to stand up straight and hold all my.
Oh my god, it's around his neck. That's so funny.
Around his neck. And so
I look at the nurses, and the nurses are just like,
yeah, they're definitely like, what is happening?
Do you want to try sitting in the bed? Do you want to try sitting in the bed?
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm not sitting in the bed.
Yeah. So I did the shower and kind of hung from like the pull. I don't know. I really felt like I needed to hang from something to make space. So I did that and hung from like the shower rod thing or whatever, and then allowed the water to hit my back. My tailbone was feeling a lot of pressure.
That happens to you. You have large babies, and I feel like every time your tailbone's always in pain.
Yes. And then I got out of there and was kind of like, at this point, that's where a transition really happened. So I was already in like a little bit of a transition when Eric got there, and then transition kicked fully in. And this is the part that kind of got really intense. So I did the shower, and then I felt hot. And so I got out of the shower, and then it was like they were relentless. The rushes were relentless. They were one on top of the other. I really didn't have much time between them. It felt so fast, and they were massive. And so it was kind of this, when I watched the video back, it cracks me up. That's actually how I felt internally too, is that my body would do this weird wave thing where I was like riding it out, and then just like getting to this like point where it was so hot and too much, and then I would like have a little bit of release, and then it would like happen again. And so I was holding on to him, and because of positioning, I had to have my legs really far apart. That's what my instinct was telling me. And so it's like the strangest wide leg sort of squat thing. And they asked me to come back over to the other side of the bed to be able to like put the thing around my belly and check baby's heart rate and everything. And so I ended up doing that, and then I didn't move again. Like they came to check me after the shower, and I was about, I think I was like 7.5 centimeters dilated. And then Goldberg was like, okay, I'm gonna go. He had to go do some round, and he was like, I'll be back in 1 hour. And so I was like, okay, right?
1 hour?
That's what I said. I was like, oh.
He's like, I'll be back in 1 hour. And I was like,
10 minutes.
Yeah. And so in that hour, I went from whatever that was, like 7 centimeters to 9.5.
It was less than an hour.
It was less?
They had to call him back.
Oh, they had to call him back. That's right. They called him back. He
wow.
Car or something, and they called him back.
He went to Quiznos.
But the reason why they knew is because I started to get very loud, like extremely.
I love it. I've seen this video, and it's my favorite thing in the world.
And I was like really guttural, like yelling.
And
out.
is that like, so if you could say what Sarah's birthing style is, Eric, would you say that she's like animalistic, guttural? Like, what's her vibes?
I mean, that's a pretty good description of it. But you have to describe that they keep, this one poor nurse keeps asking her, she's very nervous. And she keeps asking her to get in bed. And Sarah's just like, I'm not getting in the bed. And then the other nurse is working the heart rate monitor for the baby, and I are both in a squat, and we're holding your leg.
Yeah.
And she does like a power squat. I can't even do it on the camera. So she goes down like this, but she pushes so hard that her feet come off the ground. So we're holding her body.
Her full weight.
Her full weight. I don't know how the woman on the other side did it. Like, I'm not even sure. For me, I was like,
what a legend.
She was, because you were pushing and pushing down, and it was, I mean, that was, I just couldn't help. I couldn't stop laughing and appreciating just like the pure strength and power, because it was a rugged birth.
I don't think that they're used to having someone birth like in a very weird wide leg squat off the side of the bed.
Yeah, they were freaking out about that.
And so I don't think that was totally normal for them. And there was a doctor who came in, this woman, and she said, she's you know, like there's a nurse and a doctor that kind of come for the baby.
That's right, like
right?
the page
so
team.
There's like a doctor that's sort of there for the mom, and there's a doctor that's there to like help with the baby. And so they knew it was going to be a big baby, so they always end up having like a doctor and some NICU in the room when I'm giving birth. And so they came in and they were like, whoa, what is she doing? Like, let's get her on the bed, you know? And then the doctor she kept repositioning the bed, and she was like, okay, let's just get you up on the bed. And so I told this to my doctor after, and I was like, I kept shushing her. Every time she would say that, I'd be like, shh, 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 shh.
Which she doesn't. I've never heard her shush somebody.
I mean, it's
like,
not your first rodeo. You also knew exactly how you wanted to give birth. I'm so glad, though, that you didn't just get on the bed.
Well,
I'm glad you're like, no.
I did attempt it, but it was so intense. And by the way, I will share a very funny, photo later in our stories. But there's this photo of me and Eric standing next to me, and I'm in the bed when they needed to check me, and I think I was like 7.5 going through transition, and they kept telling me they needed to check me on the bed, and I was like, what?
That's right.
And Goldberg wasn't in there yet, so they wanted to do it. And my hand is over my head and my arm is kind of up in this way. And I just look like so uncomfortable, because that is absolutely the opposite of what my body wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as that was done, I was like, lift me off of this bed, and then everybody like picked me up and pulled me over to the side of the bed again. So Goldberg is coming back in, and he's like, okay, let's check you. I'm 9.5 centimeters dilated. He's like, but you have a cervical lip again, which is what you felt, but the baby is ready. The rushes are massive, and
they're not able to come down the birth canal because their head's stuck behind this swollen cervix.
Yeah,
this is the worst part, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, this is the worst part. So people always ask, like, what does it feel like to push? And I honestly, I don't know. And I will tell you that I don't know that, because for me, pushing is a very complicated and weird thing, because the baby pushes down on my cervix doesn't fully dilate. My doctor has to put his hand up inside of me, pull the rest of the cervix back, and hold it there with a lot of forearm strength. And then I have to push the head past that. And basically he's asking me to push his hand out. He's like, push my hand out. Like, and that's where I have to focus all my attention, is trying to feel where that's at and pushing his hand out to get the head past the cervix. And so it's not this like glorious feeling, which everyone does talk about how great it is to push. It's awful. I don't like it. But it is productive once you get past the cervix. Then it's like everybody's.
And how long did it take you to finally feel like the baby's head had started to descend and past the hand and the cervix?
I wouldn't know that, except we do have a video, and it's like a 14-minute video and at some point in the video, so it probably was like a 10-minute thing. At some point in the video, he says, okay, my hand is out. And so at that point, I knew, okay, so we are just talking about like me going in at this point and really like bearing down. But this is what Eric's talking about at this moment, is when I am pushing and my legs are coming up off the ground because I'm pushing down so hard. And my poor doctor is back there ready to catch. The nervous lady over here to my left is like, the baby's head's gonna hit the ground. And I'm like, the baby's head's not gonna hit the ground, like the doctor's there, he's gonna catch it.
But she didn't say that. She just said, shh.
I didn't say that, I just shushed her.
Yeah.
And then, doctor's behind me, ready to catch, and the nurse to the right.
Swapping gloves every push.
Putting
towels down. She's levitating. The nurse is keeping a track of the pulse of that baby. The one lady's running around like terrified. The fact that it's Goldberg gives them. That's why she was able to deliver in that position.
Yeah.
Would have been like, you need to get into the bed.
Yeah.
Once Goldberg stepped there, he's like, it's fine. I got it. Towels, glove. One glove it was like a grippy glove to catch the baby so it didn't hit the floor.
And I love that so much about our doctor, is that he is so game on. Like, if you know, he really follows mom's lead. And I think that was like when I had my very first meeting with him, I said, what are you going to do if I have a swollen cervix? Because it happened when I did my home birth. And then he sort of talked about what he would do. And I was like, well, what if this happens? And he's like, well, I'll follow your lead, you know, we'll just go with it. And I was
amazing.
like, okay, yeah, which I was, you know.
That feels so supportive.
Oh, it was so supportive. And the one thing I do have to interject here is that this was the first time in any of my births that this happened, but I could not stop burping during.
I was so excited to ask you about this, burping and pooping, because everyone always asks, like, do you poop when you give birth? And also, so many women are really anxious about their husbands seeing them poop.
Right.
And so I want to ask Eric as well, you don't give a shit what your wife is doing in that moment. If there's poop coming out, if they're burping and belching, it doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter at all. That's yeah. I mean, your partner is pushing out a baby. Yeah, that's not a big deal at all. And I'm, you know, blood, poop, all that stuff, I'm pretty great with.
He's amazing. Are you kidding me? I don't even have to think about it because he's like helping to clean it up and whisk it away, and everybody's like getting it out of my sight so that I don't have to see it. So Eric's like cleaning poo and just helping with the whole thing, and I'm burping so hard. Like I didn't know that was a thing. I had no idea. It was my third birth, and my doula, thank God she was there because I would have felt so confused. But she was like, oh, this is great. You know, your body's releasing air, baby's coming down. And my doctor, when he ran in, he was like, oh, yeah, that's great. That means like baby's coming down. And I was like, what? Like, before I gave birth to this baby, I saw this gorgeous video of a home birth. And it was black and white, husband and wife giving birth in the water, and this beautiful song is on, and she's like so sweetly kissing him, and then she like pulls the baby up in between them, and they're both crying, and I was like,
it's not our birth.
That is not what we do. I was like, there is so much poo. I'm burping. Like there's just there's nothing gentle about it. It is very animalistic, and I think it's probably the most assertive I ever am in my life is during labor. It's just like some other part of me kicks in,
the part that's necessary,
the part that's
necessary. But also you birth very large babies. Your babies are large, beautiful, amazing babies, and you have a magical vagina because somehow some way she's always completely intact. Everything's fine down there. I just always am like, how is that even possible? I don't know how you do it. You are like the mother of birth.
Well, it's insane. I don't know about that, but it's definitely, I spend time before giving birth, like doing a lot of sitz baths and things that the midwives, you know, taught me to do to try to not tear. And then Eric is usually
you do the coconut. Yeah,
he's usually doing the coconut.
That was your job.
Although this time the position was so weird that like we couldn't really do the coconut. Like Goldberg was like, this is happening without the oil, because it was all just kind of like happening off the side of the bed on the ground.
Right.
You know? Like such a weird position. So I'll just get to the very end of this birth story, which is that we did some more pushes. And I will post this video. I'll probably email blast it out to everyone. But the moment that I pushed this baby out, and by the way, like right at the end, I kind of can feel that it's happening, and her head is there, and everyone's cheering, and the energy is so exciting, and the room is just full of oxytocin. And I do one more big, giant push. Baby's out, and I feel that, you know, exit happen, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God.
Oh my God, what a relief.
Art.
Yeah.
You knew in the moment. Like I don't think with Wyatt, I don't think you knew how crazy difficult that birth was in the
No.
moment. But this, you had the wherewithal to be like, oh, that was a rugged birth.
It was hard. It was really hard. And you know, I put that video up this morning about it because it's just such a, you know, it's such an innocent moment for me. It sounds like a
so
seventh grader who just ran a relay race who's like, wow, that was hard, you know? But like,
oh, it's so endearing and it's so honest.
It was so honest. It was just like, I looked at my doctor who I really feel like he is our birthing partner, you know?
Yeah.
Like he really has our back, and like, I love him so much. And I looked right at him and I was like, that was so hard, you know? And he was like, wow, you really did it.
Oh, that is the most beautiful video, because just like the way he nurtures you and connects with you in that moment and tells you what a good job you did, that's so beautiful. Like, it just shows what sort of doctor he is. He really is goes above and beyond, which I think is so special to have a caretaker like that. And like, he's your partner in the room. It's wonderful.
Yeah, he really is. Which is like,
did you feel the ring of fire when she came out?
No way. Not at all.
Didn't feel any of that.
I mean, it felt intense, but I did not feel the burning, pulling thing. I had felt that with Esme, but you know, I think what ends up happening is that so much pressure is put on my cervix, and then once that the baby is like down into the canal and I'm pushing baby out, like, I think, you know how like if you hurt your foot really bad, like sometimes you feel pain like up in your leg but not in your foot where you hurt it. So like for me, that moment, I didn't feel the pain there. It was more just like an overall sort of like pushing it out. So it wasn't that like stretching, burning feeling for this third birth. With Esme, I did feel more of that, but she was 11 pounds, so she was bigger.
How big was Winter?
10 pounds 4 ounces.
Okay, so Esme was your biggest birth. And who of the three of them, which one would you say was the most challenging?
Oh, the first one. Yeah. And he was the smallest of my babies, but definitely was a big...
That pushing period for you was epic. I was there.
We didn't know that her cervix was, we didn't know that was part of the equation. And then that, and so you were pushing and pushing and pushing, but without someone really getting up there and pushing that cervix to the side, it became,
that's just relentless.
That was just.
And then didn't he have shoulder dystocia as well?
Yeah. He had like, well, they called it like sticky shoulder. So like he got stuck, but we were able to get him out.
You guys did the Gaskin maneuver. I remember seeing the quick flip and the head come out. That was so amazing. And do you remember I fully had PTSD after seeing it?
But so was Casey and I and Teresa?
Yep, and Teresa was filming it.
And I had legit PTSD, and I was like, I was pregnant. I was about 12 weeks pregnant. And I was like, I just can't do that. Mark, I just can't do it. There's just no way I can do that. Like, she's a beast and an animal, and I don't know how she did that, but I can't. It's like, everything's going to be fine. I was like, I'm having an elective cesarean. And then he talked me out of it.
No, that was all of us. And that's when Sarah was so blissed out, and you and I and Casey walked to the kitchen, and we all had that 2,000-yard stare like, what just fucking happened?
Yeah.
It was like trauma. We were all like, oh God.
Because we really did see, like...
It's so wild.
I mean, it was like, you were such a... I mean, you're a warrior on all births, but that...
A warrior.
You were so exhausted, hadn't slept, had walked like 100 miles until like our midwife was such a...
She pushed me really hard to do a lot.
I remember, wasn't it like 5 miles a day or something crazy?
Yeah.
5 miles
and you know, looking back, I think because it was my first, like, I really was trying to be led by my caregivers in that. I didn't really know. I mean, I kind of like, everything kind of felt the way that I expected it to, actually, because I had done so much research on it. But you know, I did kind of get led by my caregivers, and I really wasn't necessarily like I didn't know to follow my own body a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, there. So I kind of was like, okay, what's next? You know, what's next? What's next? And then instead of being like, okay, what does my body need at this point? Like with baby number 2, baby number 3, like I could definitely.
You have that perspective then. You have that experience.
It's probably just
Same.
normal.
Yeah, it happened to me too. Okay, so just like quickly, I realized we've been on for a while now. We've still got so many people with us. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Could you just sort of tell me about, you know, that next day in the hospital and what it was like with Winter?
Yeah, well, we could, except that we weren't there the next day. Our pediatrician was kind of a rock star.
Gangster.
Do you shutting that door real quick? The kids open the door and it's very loud. But so that day, we ended up telling the pediatrician right away, you know, I don't know what the protocol is everywhere, but at Cedars, like the pediatrician has to come.
That's right.
Out, and then they do some tests on baby and whatever. Usually you're there for a day or a couple of days, definitely overnight. And he came in and he was like, you know, I want you guys out of here tonight because of COVID. He wanted to try to get it out of there before the shift change. And, you know, actually there, it was going back up, right? The cases were going back up in September.
But we also talked to the staff, who was great, but they were like, I was like, how often are you guys tested? Because we were tested 5 times a week at work. And they were like, oh, we're not tested. And I was like, nobody's tested?
No,
and they were like, well, we test the people that come in. I go, what's your turnaround time for that, for the moms? And they were like, well, you know, 12 to 24 hours. And I go, well, what happens if somebody's positive? We're like, well, we isolate them and then the nurse stays with them. And I was like, this is a disaster.
Like you run immediately from the hospital. Goodbye.
Yeah. So that's where we were just like, let's just get out of here with with the least amount of exposure as possible.
Yeah. And so our doctor was like, okay, we're going to get you guys out. He asked them, you know, to bring some of the tests into the room. And so we did some tests there in the room. And then we were out. Like we had the baby in the afternoon, I think around noon or something like that. And then, or 11 something. And then we were in the car heading home at 9 p.m. at night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
is crazy. Like,
do you guys think Winter is your last birth?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do you?
I love that she doesn't look back.
I know. She's like, please, please, please.
I don't know. I guess my answer is I don't know.
Never say never.
Never say never.
Of course not.
Never say never. So I don't know. I mean, that was epic. And as you know, so I saw some people saying like, oh, I could see the pain in Sarah's face. Like, I don't know. Like it's not that it feels like pain. Just so you know, for me, like, it's not that it was pain. It's just really massive. It's massive pressure and feeling. And like, there's so many hormones running through the body. It's such an out of body experience when you get down to the end of birth and labor and everything. So, you know, it wasn't.
You have help from your body, like with the endorphins and the oxytocin.
Yes. And usually right after, definitely with Esme's birth, because it was so intense, and she was so big, I was like, whoa, like I don't think I want to do that for a long time. And then after this birth, it was also very intense, but I was like, Dr. Goldberg was like, so what about a 4th? And I was like, yeah. And Erica's like, what?
An hour after she gave birth, she was already like, yeah, let's do a 4th. And I was like, what? How can we?
How? We have an hour. You're like, what? Yeah, I'm the same way. Sarah. I'm like, I just want all the babies, even when I've just given birth. Give me more. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, what an incredible and epic birth story. You really are a warrior. You are. I've seen your videos. I've been there for one of your births. It's unbelievable. And you do it with no pain relief. You're just in it. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank
and
you.
I can't believe I haven't met Winter yet. What? It's so wild.
Baby's so cute.
She's really cute and really
She's so
sweet.
cute.
And
Oh.
guys, I know that everybody probably thinks that we haven't been reading your comments. We've been seeing them. We've just wanted
We've been
wanting to get this story out so that
Bring on the fourth, Eric Christian Olsen fans. Yeah, easy for you to say.
Mine have frozen. I'm frozen on Teresa. Kisses from Portugal. Kisses back.
So
All
sweet.
right, guys. Well, this was our first episode of In Conversation with Sarah and myself. We were talking about birth, Winter's birth in particular, and it was beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of it. We appreciate you guys. So much love. So much love. Thanks for
wonderful job with it.
Yeah, you're a wonderful moderator.
Oh my goodness, that was so enjoyable. I'm buzzing from the story. I really am. It's so great. All right, thanks for joining, everyone. Mwah. Check out our book. It comes out April 6th. Send Mama's Guide to Finding Your Rhythm Through Pregnancy, Birth, and Beyond. Mwah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.